So, welcome. Welcome to the Boston Tavern. Yes, sir, this is the Boston Tavern, and I am absolumBosotn. Oh, and the little store in the alley, that's mine too. Although you're not apt to find me there, the missus takes care of the store. The tavern is where I'm at. Bought them both when I retired. Smartest thing I ever did. What did I retire from? Well, we'll get to that, but first we have some other things to settle to make it easier for you to understand who we were. Until I owned a tavern, I was never aware of all the knowledge one can acquire in such a place. When you consider who frequented the tavern, it was understandable. Most of us had gone to sea when we were nothing more than boys. Don't ask me why. Surrounded by the ocean, on Nantucket, there was no other choice. Plus, that's where the money was, and the excitement, and just discovering the world. Oh, it was great. But getting back to the tavern. See, my customers in the tavern had all traveled the world, seen it all, as they say, and we did it way before the airplane came into being. It was a time, if you wanted to see the world, you either hoofed it or you sailed. And if you were from Nantucket, as we were, there was no other choice except sailing. Oh, those were fine days, the best. But getting back to the Boston Tavern, you see, my customers, as I said, had seen the world. We saw things that others had no idea of. And we had some lively conversations about our different opinions of things that we had all seen, no two sets of eyes having witnessed them alike. And that was why when Nathaniel, a large black man who had ended up in Europe and Africa, made a statement that took us all back a little. Between gulps of his rum, he said, "Do any of you gentlemen know that there was a black pope?" And we were all quiet, waiting for what we thought was a joke line coming around here. But after a few more sips of his rum, he said, "Yes, sir. His name was Gelasius the First." That's Gelasius the First. Was the Pope for 4 years, 8 months, and 18 days. And then Nathaniel just stopped. And we were thinking that maybe, just maybe, Nathaniel was leading us on into a way where he became someone who was a teller of tall tales. But after checking with the local scholar and the library folk and a few others whose opinions we trusted, we found that Nathaniel was correct. Yes, sir. This Gelasius, that's Gelasius, was quite a man. He wrote so many things about the times he lived in, we figured you'd have to take a year or two off just to read his stuff. He was the most prolific writer of all the pontiffs for the first 5 centuries. He made us blacks all proud of him, even though none of us knew of him a month previous. And my white customers were also taken aback by Gelasius too. Well, things had just about settled back to normal. That is what we call normal for the Boston Tavern. You see, I don't know if you understand what it is I'm getting at here. You see, my customers, black or white, didn't matter the color. The problem was they were all Nantucketers. Now, you get 10 to 20 Nantucketers together, which was the case most often in the Boston Tavern, and I guarantee there'd be some lively conversation and some controversy, and that's a fact. Like I was saying, we had just about gotten back to normal after, a month or so debate of Gelasius, the Black Pope, when Nathaniel popped up with another. Out of nowhere, he asked, "Do any of you gentlemen recall hearing about Septimus Severus?" Well, the answer was a unanimous no. In fact, we told Nathaniel that not only had we not heard about him, we had no idea who he was. Well, Nathaniel, after a few more sips of his rum, went on to tell us about Septimus Severus. He was a Roman emperor from 193 AD to 211 AD, and then Nathaniel just stopped. He seemed to be studying his rum. And out of the silence spoke Thomas Gear, a just retired white whaling captain. "That's all well and good," he told Nathaniel, "but unless he's buying us all a drink, I don't see what his being a Roman emperor is doing us." Oh, we all laughed at that one. Even Nathaniel did. But after it quieted down a bit, Nathaniel took his mouth from his rum glass, licked his lips, and told us about Septimus Severus. He went over and ruled England, fought the Brits, kicked their behinds at Hadrian's Wall, had 1,000 or more black Moroccans with him, all Romans, of course. And then he stopped here for another drink of his rum. Now, I don't want to speak for everyone present that night, but I felt that we all felt that old Nathaniel was up to something. And if you were there and you felt that way, you were right. Well, Nathaniel again took a sip of his rum, licked his lips, smiled at us all, and said, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, he was a black man." Yes, Septimus Severus was a black Roman emperor. So another month or two went by, with all of us checking out Nathaniel's claim of a black Roman emperor. And just like the Black Pope, we found that Nathaniel was correct. Well, later on, I apologized to him for doubting his claims of Black Pope and Roman Emperor. And you know what he said to me? He said, "You just wait, Absalom. Someday, way off in the future, a group will be sitting around having a few drinks, and your name, absolumBosotn, will be mentioned. They'll say, absolumBosotn was a black whaling captain out of Nantucket, sailed the oceans with an all-black crew. You just wait, Absalom. It'll happen." You know, Nathaniel was right again. But let me just say that I owe it all, well, not all, but most of it to Nantucket. Now, you think about it. It's the 1820s, and I'm out there, a black whaling captain, with an all-black crew, sailing the seas of the world, and we were free. Yeah, free. First of all, we were all Nantucketers to the core. All of us. All of us had worked on whaling ships as youths. As a black on Nantucket, you worked, you got paid. You had money, you could buy property. We formed Newtown, or as some call it, New Guinea. Our own little section of Nantucket. Why? My friend Pompey and me, Pompey, we had some interesting names, didn't we? Well, Pompey and me got the money together, and we bought the old dancing hall. It became the Black Baptist Church. Some blessed us, and others never forgave us. Yes, well, I became a first mate with Captain Folger. That was way up there back then. I was 19 at the time, and I guess I should have been happy with that. But with my ego and desire, I wanted more. I wanted my own ship, and I got it. I got it. And some people, some whites, saw fit to back me. So off we went. Captain absolumBosotn and his all-black crew. And we were good to the best in my opinion. Of course, when we returned to Nantucket, we were sometimes offered 1/2 to 3/4 what they paid the white whalers. And you have to think of the times. Nantucket was a good place to be, either black or white. Oh, it wasn't perfect. But when you think of the alternative, well, in the 1840s, I decided to retire. Gave up whaling and retired. That is, if you call running the Boston Tavern retired. Yes, I thought it was time for me to spend some days and nights, weekends and holidays with my lovely, lovely wife and our children. About the children. Well, I must admit, I hardly knew them. It was due to my being away at sea. Some long trips. One trip lasted a 1.5 years. One lasted almost 3 years. I guess it worked out well for spacing out our family. Why, my children, see, they were 3.5, 5, and 7. No, she was closer to 8. That was their respective ages when I retired. I guess you could call it a form of whaler Planned Parenthood. As all of us had children spaced similarly. Because we spend so much time at sea. Why, my crew had children who were peers of my children. And they all grew up together, probably never figuring out that their corresponding ages was due to the fact that their fathers spent so much time at sea hunting for whales. Of course, there was a few births that did not quite match up with time spent here and away. They were known as immaculate conceptions. They were mostly talked about by the ladies up on Petticoat Road. That's where most of the gossip swirled. Well, I returned here in the 1840s. Yes, gave up whaling and returned. And you know what I started to think on? I started to think about things that I hadn't given much thought my busy, busy life. One of the things that came to my mind was the schools. Now, I started to think that the schools could be just like my tavern. Now, I figured in the tavern, we accepted both blacks and whites. So you know what I figured? I figured if we can do it in my tavern, the schools should be able to do the same. So 1849 or so, I got up a petition and had my daughter admitted to the local high school. First black student, a big thing at the time. Now, most Nantucketers knew my family. Most thought it was a good idea. Should have happened sooner, some said. We all went about our business. No fuss. Or when the next black student enrolled. It's how it should be. The Nantucket way. Yes, sir, Nantucket. A place I always loved, always will. It was here. It was here in 1760 that Mr. Swain gave my father his freedom. That's 1760. Think about that for a while. Yes, sir. I was raised here, left here to go to sea. And I died here about 1855, buried here. They never recorded the births or deaths of blacks on Nantucket until 1860. That is, unless you own property. Then the property deeds will give your birth, your death, your race, or whatever else of interest. Anyways, so I've been gone from Nantucket about 150 years now. Or at least my body's been gone. I'm still here in mind. And well, the hereafter, or whatever you want to call it, it's just like the Boston Tavern and Newtown. We have our own little section. Oh, and don't be offended. We prefer it that way. You're all welcome. Either black or white, it don't matter. It's just like the Boston Tavern was. In fact, it's a lot like it. So, When you make the trip over, drop in and see us. Just remember my name, absolumBosotn, the black whaling captain from Nantucket, and you're all welcome. Good day.